Hey YouTube, today I'd like to do a video about different kinds of track. I have a assortment of track here, and I'm going to show you different kinds of track that you can use for your layout because I had to do a lot of research to figure out what kind of track I would use, and there wasn't really a lot of information on the internet about the details of each different kind of track, each different manufacturer, and which one was better. So let's check out these different kinds of track. Alright, so I have Snap Track. This is Atlas Snap Track here, and Flex Track. But what I'd like to focus on first is these plastic roadbed tracks. There's a lot of different manufacturers making plastic roadbed track, basically so you can set it up on the floor, but some people are using it on their layouts as well. This is the well-known Bachmann Easy Track, Atlas True Track, and this is Kato Unitrack, all in HO scale. Alright, so the differences between the three. This one I had originally, and I didn't like it because it had Code 100 rail, but this is pretty beat up, so that's why I use it to scribe my curves for a 22-inch radius, so that's why it's so beat up. But I wanted to see if I could find something with Code 83 rail, so I got these two, and I was surprised in the differences. So the first thing I want to cover is just the system of holding together. Which one's the best, whether you're going to run it on a layout or on the floor. So check out, the Bachmann Easy Track uses these big, huge clips to hold it together. So it's pretty robust when you first buy it. But after you take it apart a couple times, the clips can break because they do get kind of brittle. So for probably for on the floor, it's a pretty good bet. It also works pretty good if you're going to use it as just a pattern for curves. Bachmann Easy Track also comes in 22-inch, 18-inch, 26-inch, and I think 28-inch and 31-inch curves. So that gives you a lot of different radiuses of curves to select from without changing to different tracks. All right, the next one I want to look at is the Atlas True Track. This, I was really excited about getting this, but the biggest drawback to this is the actual thickness. With the Bachmann track, you can lay a regular snap track, like if you're using snap track in either cork roadbed or foam roadbed, you can lay it literally right up to the edge, and this is Code 100, and it'll match up like almost perfectly. You might have to shim it a little bit, but it'll match up because it's almost the same thickness. But with the Atlas, literally the track, everything, it's so thin that it's going to require considerable shimming. You can see this is Atlas Snap Track Code 83. This is Atlas True Track Code 83. And it's like it's going to require considerable shimming in order to get that to match up. So anywhere you would change, that would be a big problem. Atlas has this little system where they have little joiners that, a male and female. So it's not as sturdy as the Bachmann track. The biggest advantage, though, to the Atlas track is if you want to add ballast to this track, you can literally pop this as a piece of snap track. It literally pops right out. So you could pop this out. You can paint this with a water-based paint or Elmer's glue. Pop it right back in, and then you can either sprinkle your ballast or do some flocking with some static grass, and it'll look very realistic. And so it's the same track. All right, so the next one is the Kato Unitrack. I really, really like this because unlike these two tracks, both the Bachmann and the Atlas track use a plastic connection system that's separate from the rail joiners. Whereas if you look at on the Kato track, it uses a smaller rail joiner that's actually encased in the plastic connector. So when you put this stuff together, you can literally just snap it together. There's no doubt in the world that the rail joiners are going to go together. And surprisingly, for as small as they are, it's almost as sturdy as the Bachmann would be brand new. And then the other advantage to this is it is perfectly exactly the right height almost. You can see where the rail would just literally slide right in there to line up to a regular height like snap track or flex track on cork or foam roadbed. So those are those different kinds. There's not as much selection for Kato track in HO scale as there is in N scale. The Atlas True Track has all the same stuff pretty much that they would have in their snap track. So those are those three kinds of track. I have Code 100 snap track here, which it's an old standby, but the rails are really oversized for what they should be. Two different kinds of roadbed. One of the things with some of the newer snap track as opposed to flex track, if you can take a look at this side by side here, that I like about the snap track is the spikes are actually alternated. They're not exactly right centered in the tie, whereas like with the older track you have this huge spike that's oversized, holding the rail in. And same thing with the flex track, but with the snap track you have smaller spikes that are kind of catty-cornered across from each other, just like they would be in real life. All right, so the next thing, there's another kind of track I'd like to look at besides, kind of like a hybrid between flex track and hand laid track, and that is, it's a new kind of track system called the Central Valley tie strips. And this is actually a turnout. It's a flexible turnout kit, and they make flexible tie strips for flex track, and literally it's just a plastic tie strip. You can glue it down. They make it in different, it's the first kind of track that they've actually made in different basically different configurations of how long the ties are, how close they are together to simulate branch line versus main line operations. But basically these are pretty simple in that they allow you to build turnouts to fit and also lay track that's really realistic, because they have kits, detail kits, which we have here, to make, these are like all different details that you would see on real track that you don't find on any type of snap track whatsoever, any type of flex track. You only find these by literally super detailing like hand laid track. The only drawback to these are the ties are a little bit thinner, so you'd have to shim it up like with a fine piece of cardboard, just for comparison, in order to get the ties to be the same height. You'd have to shim it up with like a fine piece of cardboard. But that's not necessarily bad, I think, with the turnouts, because you could literally build this turnout on the piece of cardboard and get it to the curvature that you want or whatever profile you want, and then go from there. So then that covers the snap track and the plastic track. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is just different kinds of turnouts. A lot of people build railroads and it's like, this is a number 6 turnout. Okay, so I'm going to run some big engines, so I want to use number 6 turnouts on my main line. Well, actually there's a lot more turnouts out there than just number 6 turnouts. It's amazing how much you can get out of a curved turnout by throwing a curved turnout into your layout. You can actually add a lot of running space, a lot of different operations, especially on smaller layouts like a 4x8 layout. If you put a curved turnout, then you can get a lot longer siding to run around trains. You can run longer trains just by adding a curved turnout. Costs a little bit more than a regular turnout, but it's actually worth it, because if you think, you only put one at the end of each of the sidings, and then you get a little bit more space. This is a Walther Shinohara turnout, which is another manufacturer, and these are very, very finely detailed. Also, what's nice about them is they don't have, compare it to like the Atlas, they don't have like the little open area there. They actually make the ties a little bit thinner at the end so that you have room to get your rail joiner underneath. This is an older one, so it's not necessarily DCC friendly, but it'll have to be converted. But that's, pretty much a curved turnout. The two things that determine what a curved turnout is the angle of your frog. This is a number 7, and the radius that is of the main route and the diverging route. This is a 28-24. And just because it's a number 7 doesn't mean it has to be a 28-24. There's other manufacturers that make number 7 turnouts that are like 30-36 or 31-35 or whatever. So it could be whatever radius you need, but that's going to give you a lot more flexibility. And then the only other thing that I wanted to touch on is the difference between number turnouts that have a number to the frog and curved diverging route turnouts. This is a number 6 turnout, and I'm not going to say I know exactly the dimensions of what makes it a number 6, but number 6 means that it's a certain angle that's been decided on for the frog. Same thing with this is a number 4. The difference is it diverges at that angle, and then this track goes back to being a straight track. So it's like a straight shot off of the main line. Whereas if you have this track over here, this is an Atlas track that has a 22-inch radius curve. Using these can also help you because it actually gets, if you're trying to curve and get into an area like sooner, it's still a 22-inch radius curve. It's the same thing as having a 22-inch radius curve plugged right on the end of a straight track, but it doesn't have, like, if you used a number 6, you can see you'd be starting way out here, and then it'd require a lot more space. These are actually designed for like your basic starter sets to make passing sidings, but you can use them a lot in your layout. So that's it for turnouts, track. Hope you can learn something. I had to acquire a lot of different ones in order to figure out which track I was going to use where. So you don't have to use the same track on the whole layout, but thanks for watching, and until next time.